Photoshop WoW 6. This is a 6-part series. Part 1, Ready, Set, Go, is what we're going to go through today. A little bit of picto design theory, and basic design element theory. Developing your album set, selecting your dominant images, grouping your images into spreads, what we call selection logic. So what we're going to do is first we're just going to dive into a little bit of graphic design theory. Really, it's just one rule that I try to follow when I'm designing. A lot of us have heard of the rule of thirds. That is a very important rule to follow when designing. There is a rule that has been around for ages that is a lot like the rule of thirds, and it is the golden rule or the golden ratio. And what I'm showing here on my screen is the golden ratio being applied in triangles, diagonals, a swirl line, which is called the golden swirl. And this is really more of a tool. It's not so much a workflow object that I use in every single album. I use this to study what I'm doing in the past, or what I have done in the past, what I'm doing currently, and making sure that I stay with common rules that have been applied to design since the beginning of time. And if you want to go out and Google it, you can check it out, Golden Rule and how it's applied in designs. A lot of great information that you can find on just basic rules and design theories. The cool thing about what I have here in front of you, there is a Photoshop plugin that I found on the internet that is Power Retouch PR Golden Section. If you Google that, you can find this plugin. I like it because it allows me to drop these lines right onto their own layer, so I can just add a layer onto any design. I'm showing this on a blank document right now just to show how it works, but this is just something that I found works really great. I can show myself the rule of thirds, harmonic triangles. I can look at the spiral sections, golden spiral, or the golden sections. There is so many rules that can be applied to this, but basically the important thing is you're looking at impact points. The crosshairs of these are impact points. Your rule of thirds, this is something we've all studied as photographers. These crosshairs is where we try to put dynamic subject matter. It's where our subject reaches its peak, where we're trying to get our viewer to look at. We always try to frame things up on the rule of thirds. Well, once we dive into design, there's a couple other elements that we can do. For example, golden sections. These are areas within the design that we can also put focus points into, where the body of the section can land, and we can utilize these sections for impact. We can utilize the spiral to, I use it as a visual flow. Yes, our eye tends to follow a Z pattern, but we also flow through a design through the different elements in the section. For example, if I turn the spiral off, you can see that if we split each section up, that it spirals to a corner. And so just different elements. It's one of those things, again, this is not for workflow. This is to help guide you in continuing to build a data bank of knowledge and how you can use it. I'm going to show this to you again a little bit later, and how you can drop this over in album design to see if what you've done follows any sort of rules, if it's breaking any rules, how to make it work for you. And then something that I like to do, I like to take this filter and I like to run it over designs that I find, whether it's a graphic design, an album design, maybe just an advertisement, and I like to see what the designer has done and what is it that I like and dislike about it. And me personally, I have found personal patterns and things that I like and how this lands and how it works. So this is just a little tip, a little trick, a tool that I use. We'll refer back to it throughout the day, but it's not anything that we're going to build into our workflow. It's just going to help us with understanding what design elements work and what design elements might fall off of standard logic. Okay, so now we're going to dive straight into the selection logic process, which is developing your album set, selecting your dominant images, and grouping your images into spreads. First and foremost, I design in spreads. Now when I refer to a spread, just like a novel, you open it up and there's a left side and a right side, or a left page and a right page, and that would be your spread. And so I design in spreads because our books are viewed in spreads. Now I open with a single page and I close with a single page, but everything else is 2 pages butted up together as a spread. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to group my images together to line them up into the spreads that I want them in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look here at my album. Now this happens to be a vertical book because vertical obviously fits this because it just so happens to be 100% vertical images in this bridal portrait. Today, just to show you, we're going to go through 3 different sessions: a bridal portrait, a high school senior portrait, and then I have a wedding to show you and how all of this flows together with a wedding. So the first thing that I did, and I did this before I started the video, is I just drug the images to a place in the book to tell the story. Because to us, we're photographers first, but when we start designing a book, we become a storyteller. And as a storyteller, we have to give a full story, but it helps to break that story up into chapters. And to me, the chapters are the breaks in the session, the changes in backgrounds, and the dramatic changes in poses and expressions. And so what I've done is I've sorted these images into common themes. And let me explain. So the first set is the archway with the couch. I switch to my next background. I keep one thing in common, and that would be the couch. She's sitting on the couch from the first set to the second set. And then the next set would be her standing. The common element would be the mirror. I'm trying to keep something common from one set to the next. Now the next set's a little bit tricky for me because there's not anything in the background or the foreground that ties it together other than the fact that she's standing. So we're just kind of moving through some standing poses, and then we go right into a whole new background. I've kind of mixed this up a little bit to give a little variation. The challenge with this particular shoot is the light all comes in from the left. We don't have any sort of variation because I was in a building where the lighting was on one side and I did the entire shoot kind of on that side. So I didn't get a huge variety of light angle changes and variation in pose directions. Basically, she's looking off to the left of the screen here, or to her right, the majority of the shoot. And so in designing this, I have to be a little bit careful of leading people off the page and back into the page. And so my selections, I am trying to keep everything as tidy as possible. And let me show you what I'm talking about. So here's my opening image. I'm going to open with a single image, and so I'm just going to label this red. That's Command 6 on the Mac, Control 6 on the PC. Or if you just want to right click over it, label red. Now then I'm going to do my opening spread, which follows my opening page. So it's page 2-3, and I'm just going to label this the next color, which is yellow. You can see here I'm just going to go red, yellow, green, blue, and I'm not going to do purple. Okay, so now I have page 1, page 2, 3, and I can see this by the grouping of the colors. It's not that I'm trying to pick a set number of images, I'm trying to group them into storytelling chapters. That's really what I'm aiming for here. So my next storytelling chapter is her sitting down. So I'm going to group all these together. That's going to be green. And then I'm going to group the next storytelling, which is her standing up, blue. And I'm going to keep going through this, labeling my different sections. Now here, I'm going to create a subchapter, basically. I'm switching scenes in the middle of a spread, and I'm going to do that so that I can shift gears into this green arched hallway and what's going to eventually end the book. So I'm just going through, making my selections. And there I finished. So now I can look at this and I can see page 1, page 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I tend to do 16-page books for my portrait albums because that's the minimum that Leather Craftsmen requires. And so I like to do 16-page books for my portrait albums because I can keep the cost down on them and I can sell them at a pretty low price and I can get a lot of books out there. I'm not looking to sell them at a super high price to get a whole bunch of books out there. So that's why I happen to do a lot of 16-page books. And so now that I have gone through this and I've grouped these images together into spreads, now what I want to do is go back through and select the dominant image. Now what I mean by dominant image, I mean the image that's going to cover 50% or more of the spread, which means it's going to cover at least one page of the spread. And I want to tell myself this so that if I'm distracted throughout my design process, or maybe I might start this tonight, finish it tomorrow, or I get a phone call in the middle, I can always come back and know exactly what I was thinking no matter what the distractions might be. And so I'm simply just going to go through this and I'm going to 5-star what I think is the dominant image, or which image I think helps tell the story the best. So for example, she's looking at the camera in this one versus looking away. I think this is an absolutely beautiful image. It's one of the more powerful images in the entire book to me. I want to make that one full page. The size of book I'm going to do is an 8 by 12 vertical, so I'm not going to do a whole lot of cropping. Probably do some retouching to knock out some of the chandelier that's dangling down here and the spots on the wall, but not going to do a whole lot of cropping on these full images because I'm going to fill one whole page with this. Okay, so I've got a straight on shot and I've got 4 shots that are looking off to the left of the screen here. So I'm going to make this straight on shot a dominant image or a full frame shot in the album, and then I'm going to have these 4 kind of support it. And so I'm just going to keep moving on here. Same thing here. I've got 4 images. Again, these are kind of all looking off, so I'm going to use the one looking at the camera as more of the dominant image. Not trying to say that looking at the camera needs to always be the most dominant image, but I'm trying to break this up also since I have a lot of images looking off to the left. Now I know that if I put images looking off to the left on a left-hand page, I might be leading them off, but sometimes you have to kind of just break the rules and fudge a little bit to make the story tell. And that's the most important part, is you're being a storyteller and you want to tell the story. And so the other thing that I'm doing that I haven't mentioned here, with my dominant image, or this 5-starred image that I'm going to fill one page with, I'm physically locating it in bridge here where I think it should be. This is going to be the right hand image. This is the left hand image. This is the left hand image. These 4 will be right hand images. These 3 will be on the left. This one will be on the right. These 2 images, I'm going to go with this image being the larger image because in the next spread I want this one, which is very similar to the previous image, which will be on the previous page, to be the large image. And so if I make this image the dominant image and then this one again, it's going to look very similar from page to page. So I'm trying to break it up just a little bit. And then I come down here, I already have one close-up as a large image, so I'm going to make this my large image. And then I'm going to come in here, you know what, I want these 2 both to be full page. So I'm going to tell myself these are just 2 full page images. Now the last image, I don't need to worry about telling myself where it needs to go because it's the last image. There's only one on that page. And at this point, I'd be ready to design. So I know I went through this really quickly, but the idea behind it is I'm thinking about the overall story. I'm trying to tie it together with elements like couch, 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 mirror, 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 standing, hallway, ends with a high impact, starts with a high impact, and I'm ready to just dive into my design and go into the spreads. Okay, so now that I've grouped these images together and got them all picked out, I could walk away and come back. So I'm going to move into the next book, just kind of quickly run through how I might do this at full speed. This is how I do it. So that would be page 1. I'm seeing a dominant image with some extras, so that would be page 2, 3. That's my dominant image. This one, you know what, I want to do a pano, and I want to tell myself that's a pano. I think that needs to be the dominant image, and here would be my paired up images on that spread. I think for this one I'm going to do these two together, and I want this image to be big, so I'm going to tell myself that's the big image, and I want the black and white to be big, so I'm just going to do that, let myself know that the black and white is big, and then finish this up with marking it just so I know, and I can count my pages now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then this one was in the set. I took it out because these are all somber, beautiful images, and this is a funny picture. Doesn't fit the book, I take it out. Occasionally I tell my clients I might pull an image or two if it just absolutely does not work within the design. And that's how I would do my selection logic at full speed. Pick my book, whether it's a 16-sided book or a 60-sided book. I always start with this process so I know when I'm ready to design a page, I can dive right into designing that page, and I don't even really have to think about it. Let me show you an example. And this is along the lines of what we're going to start into next week. We're going to be able to open our images from our selection logic. We're going to be able to open a layout. Now this is a 12 by 8 book, so it's a 24 by 8 pano spread. I'm going to show you how we're going to do guides to customize and drop all the guides, and then I'm even going to show you how to write this action called drop zone, where it will go in and it will take all the images and put them on the layout for us. From there I can go ahead and design the page. Now next week we're also going to talk at great length about how to build album layouts in your head, how to build an album layout library, and how to optimize this whole process. Okay, so here is a prime example of where I already see where I want this to go, but if I wasn't 100% sure, I might drop a new layer on here. Let's go down and grab that golden section, excuse me, and I just want the spiral. That's all I want. I don't need any of the other stuff. I really just want to see, except I want the sections. And I'm going to apply that to this, and I'm going to drag it over so I can see, do I have this spiral bringing me in and wrapping right around this box and bringing me right to where I want the viewer to look. And that's most important to me. Now some of the little shortcuts that I'm doing and I'm throwing out here really fast, we're going to get into that real quick next week. We're going to go through a lot of these shortcuts and how to write these actions and automate this next week. But there's a quick example of how, most of us would either drop this in the center or move it all the way to the right and wouldn't think anything of the placement of where it landed and why we would want to put it in any particular spot. That is just an example of how I use that just old-fashioned design theory to bring it in there, and it's a high impact placement that really it doesn't take away from the images in any way. So let me dive into showing us a wedding and kind of how the entire process runs from start to finish. And so I go through and do my entire selection logic, picking my images to be grouped into spreads, labeling my dominant image or the image that I want to fill the majority of the spread, and then I simply come back and I design the book. And so you can see, here's the 2 images that create this spread. Here are the 11 images that create this spread, and so on. Here's finally I get to a point where I'm not doing a lot of detail shots, so you can see I've 5-starred an image. Here's the other 4 supporting images. You can even see this is a horizontal, but I went ahead and cropped it as a vertical, and here's the spread that I've created with this. These 3 images, you can see the one that's 5-starred, it shows up as the biggest image in the spread. It's just telling me how to lay this out so I know what I'm thinking. There's my dominant image. Boom, there's the spread. Another example, let me just go ahead and show you. And again, I don't do this very often. I don't do it to every single spread, but you can see this just lines up right into his face, and if I wanted to flip it, I can show you that it just goes right through the face and just the eye just falls in. So from any direction, no matter which way they're opening the book, looking through it, I know that I've got powerful composition. The sections are full of images and in very important places, and I can switch all this off, and I can even go back to good old-fashioned rule of thirds, and where stuff is landing right on the thirds. This one's a little off third composition, so for an extreme impact, but I'm able to go and do a quick check. I'm not even going to apply that because I don't need to, and keep going. Like I said, I very rarely do that, but it's a good thing to just be able to check. So I've got my two images, my dominant image, and so on. And this process goes on and on and on all the way through. Today we did get a pretty large request for could I see a full album start to finish. So in the video I'm going to show just kind of a quick preview. Next week you're going to have a bunch of JPEGs that you're going to be able to download after the program as quick reference guides for templates and ideas and just different things that I've done in the past. And it's going to be full wedding album designs that we're going to go ahead and hand to you in JPEG format, so you can just kind of look at them to get ideas and to kind of build that memory bank of templates for custom album layout design. Alright, so I know this is something that we went through rather quickly, covering every element from picto design theory, developing your album design set, selecting your dominant images, grouping them into spreads, and building the set so that you're able to roll right into your album design. This is by far the least exciting section of the program, but by far, in my opinion, the most important. We do this process to every single book that comes through the studio, no matter what. It allows us to know exactly how many pages we're designing so that we never over-design or under-design. We always know that we've used every single image in the book because it's marked. We can track it. We can look right here at it and see every single page has been designed. And it also just gives me a reference as I'm going through this. Mentally, I'm able to pull from just what I call mental templates and start designing the book in my head as I'm picking these images, so I don't open a set of images, a grouping of images, and go, I have no idea what to do. Where do I start? Because I did that process here in Bridge. You can use any software to do this. You don't have to do this in Bridge. However you design, even if you're not using Photoshop to design, if you want to use InDesign or you want to use a third-party out of Photoshop standalone designer, find some way of developing your set before you start your design, and you'll find that whether you're custom designing or picking templates, that it's a lot easier to fit the images to what you're wanting to do if you already know what images are going on which spread or which page. I appreciate y'all listening, and I hope this helps. Can't wait to send out 6.2, the second part of Photoshop WoW 6. Have a great day.